As you've started putting your application together, are you finding yourself stuck on letters of recommendation? Particularly, are you being faced with the opportunity, the terror that comes with maybe writing your own? If that's you, today's going to help. If you're new, my name is Alice. I'm one of the Associate Law School Consultants and the Director of Pre-Law Programming with Montgomery Admissions Consulting. I come to this work with almost a decade of law school experience and reading thousands of law school applications for decision as I worked in law schools. But today we're talking about letters of recommendation. One of the things that happens sometimes, not a lot, but sometimes, you've done the work you need to do. You've got the relationship built with your recommender, like you're ready to go. But when the time comes for you to ask them, and you've asked them with plenty of time, again, you have done all of the right things. Everything that you were supposed to do to make this easy for your recommender to write the letter, you've done it. When it comes time for them to take the ball and to actually write the thing, they're super enthusiastic. They're really busy. They're not sure if they're going to have time to get to it. You know, it would be a lot easier. You just go ahead and write it. You know what you do. You know what you're good at. I'll look it over. I'll sign it. I'll put it in. That's just easier for everybody. Should you do that? Is it weird to write your own letter of recommendation? Can you do that? The really short answer is, not shockingly, it depends. And it depends on just a couple of things. So first, from the get-go, if it is at all possible, don't write your letters. There's a couple of reasons for this. But if you can get your recommender to do so, you can help them. You can give them all of the information that they could possibly want. You can sit with them. You can do whatever it is that they need from you to make it an easy process. Don't do the writing yourself. And there are two really big reasons for this. Number one, you may know what you do. You probably have a pretty good idea of where you excel, whether it's in class, at a job, whatever it is. You know what you're good at. You can probably put it down on paper pretty well. But here's the thing, and I can tell you this from experience. The things that your supervisor sees that you are good at are not always the same things that you know that you are good at. The professor who's gotten to watch you in class, you may think that you're an engaged student. You're showing up. You're doing all of the things that you're supposed to. You are a good student. You can write that down, but your faculty member knows the keywords because at the end of the day, they're talking to other faculty when they write these letters. They know how to write it. They know the words that those other faculty are looking for because they'd be looking for the same ones. So you may end up with a much clearer picture, a much broader picture of why you're awesome if you're not the one writing your letter. The other one, and this is kind of in the same vein, and as soon as I say it, you're going to think, oh my God, they're going to say bad things. No, often, pretty regularly, especially in the times when your recommender knows that you're not actually going to see the finished product. They can be more candid. Like I said, you're going to think, but that means they're going to say bad things. Not always. This might be a professor. They have worked hard to not seem approachable. They are. They're a great faculty member. They're a good professor, care about their students, but they are not trying to be out there being a softie. And they have worked at that. If all of that comes through in that letter of recommendation and they know that you're going to see it, they may not be as truthful. They may not be as expansive. They may not say all of the really wonderful things that they like about you because they still got to maintain that image. It may be the same way with a boss or someone that you have worked with that has supervised you, whatever it is. If they take the separation between the coworkers very seriously, they may have a wonderful working relationship with you, but they have no desire to be your friend. That's fine. But if they know how wonderful you are and they put that down in writing and they know that you're going to see it, they may be less inclined to be as excited about the good things that you have added to their life than if they knew you weren't going to see it. So it's not always negative. Sometimes it is. That is also a thing that can happen. I have in fact seen that happen. I tell this story a lot. I may have talked about it in another video, but I can still remember letters of recommendation coming in from professors, and this student did not choose wisely because the recommendation that that professor made was to not admit this student. Does it seem a little petty for them to go to the trouble of writing the letter rather than just being like, nah, I can't do that. I don't feel good about it. You should probably find somebody else. Sure. But if you have been a monster all semester and then you come in at the end and are like, hey, I need a letter of recommendation for law school. Can you help me? Professors are human. They are well within their rights to paint an accurate picture of you, even if it's not a good one. And again, more likely to be brutally honest, for better or worse, if they know you're not going to see it. That's not a thing that can happen if you're the one writing the letter. It's just not how it works. I mentioned a little bit earlier to make sure that you're giving them the support that they need to try and make this work. Way back when I applied to law school, my advisor, a professor I worked with very, very regularly, very, very closely, was one of the people writing my letter of recommendation. He was also writing a book and teaching like 3 or 4 classes. It's a fairly heavy lift. And for all that he meant so well and was so happy to help because I had been a really good student, it just kept getting bumped to the bottom of the to-do list. I'd given him plenty of time because I knew how busy he was. But as things ticked down, as it got closer and closer to when I wanted to send an application in, when I followed up, we finally came to the agreement that I needed to sit in his office. He had all of the information that I needed to write it, but he would not focus on getting the thing done. So one day after class, when I had some free time and he had some free time, I just sat in his office. I think I read a book, answered like 2 super easy questions that he just couldn't remember, and he wrote the letter. I never saw it. I didn't ask to see it. I didn't expect to see it. But sometimes that's the kind of help they need. Just be in their eye line. And it worked out great. I got into law school. I mean, I'm sure his letter helped. I'm still very grateful for everything that I learned from him. So hopefully he wrote a good letter. Again, I got in, so I'm assuming it wasn't terrible. But I also didn't see what he wrote. I trusted him to write really good things because that was the relationship that we had. That's what you want with your recommenders. You want to be able to trust that whatever they write, even if you don't see it, it's going to be good. The other thing that I want to touch on really, really briefly right now, talking about seeing your letters and not. When you go to start the recommendation process with LSAC, you put in the information for your recommender, you click some things, it sends an email, all of that. One of the parts of that process, a little checkbox, I think it's checkbox, is something. And what it does when you select it, check it, whatever, is it says, I waive my rights to see this letter. As soon as it is uploaded to your account in LSAC, you are no longer entitled to look at it. You have given up that right. What that means practically is usually not a whole lot. Rarely are you going to need your law school application letters of recommendation for something that the school cannot release directly to the party that needs it. In my case, most often it was sending an application to the school or the program that was involved in a dual degree program, not passed through the student because we wanted to make sure that they got the entire application, including those letters of recommendation that most often students do waive their rights to see. It is optional. Do not let anyone tell you otherwise. You do not have to give up those rights. The recommender will see that you have not. The school will see that you have not. But it does not affect the decision making on the school's end. Can't promise what it'll do for your recommender, but you'll get to see it. So most applicants do seem to give that right up. But again, it has no bearing whatsoever on the decision-making process. So if you want to see, go for it. How you navigate that if you actually wrote the letters, up to you. I have my own thoughts, but we'll get to that in a minute. But if you've tried everything, you have sat in their office, you have given them a beautiful packet of information, you have talked with them about it, you have walked them through pretty much everything they could possibly need, and they are still really excited, but really busy. And it comes back to, I need you to write this, I'll look it over, I'll sign it, I'll send it in. What do you do then? Do you panic? You don't panic. This is not the ideal situation, but it is by no means super problematic. All in all, until the letter comes to LSAC and is then subsequently released to the law school, that's up to you and your recommender. We don't care. LSAC doesn't have a dog in this fight. Law school's got other stuff to worry about. As long as you guys have a plan, as long as you and your recommender have come to an agreement, you know exactly what you are doing, you good. At minimum, you want to make sure that the person you have chosen to write this letter, even if they are not writing the text, you want to make sure that they are signed off on it. You want to make sure that they are, in fact, the person that is submitting it to your file at LSAC. You have sent them the email with the instructions on how to do it, and they are the person who is clicking those couple of buttons. It is not going to look any different from any other letter of recommendation that we receive as law schools. There's not a big red flag on it that says, recommender didn't write this. The only time there is ever any indication of more than one author, and the only time I ever saw this, was politicians and lawyers. You'll see something that's usually down in the bottom, and it'll have a set of initials, a slash, and then another set of initials. Or they'll be underneath of each other, some set of 2 initials. One's lowercase, one's caps, a lot of the time. I'm not sure if that's like a do this always kind of thing, or if it's just practice for the places that I was typically seeing it from. What that says to me as a reader is that this was prepared often by an assistant, a secretary, by a paralegal, somebody that was not the person whose signature is on the paper. The fact that both of those initials are on there, though, means that everybody knows the person that is signing the letter said, I need you to write this letter. Here's what I'd like it to be like. They look it over, they sign it, it's good to go. That is the only indication, in my experience as a law school admissions officer, that it is apparent in any kind of way that the person that signed it is not the person that wrote it. Now, this is common practice in wherever it is that you are, and it might be your initials at the bottom of that thing with the signatory's initials. There's somebody else that can type it up. You may want to ask them too. But again, not necessary. Helpful maybe, not required. Before we wrap up, I want to make sure that I point out everything that I'm telling you right now is based on my own experience and it's general. At the end of the day, the answer always going to be, I need you to do your own research. I need you to look at the actual language that is provided by the schools to which you are applying. They may have thoughts. If they do, they will very likely make it abundantly clear that they have thoughts on this thing and how you should proceed accordingly. If there's nothing there, cool. But if they do have specific information provided saying, oh, well, I didn't check because I just saw somebody else's video on the internet, is not a good enough excuse. I'm not speaking from a vacuum. I have a lot of experience in this. I've read a lot of recommendation letters. Thinking back through, there are none that stood out to me that were definitely not written by the person that signed them, except, like I said, for the ones that have that little notation at the bottom. But I can only speak from what I saw in the schools that I worked at. So make sure that you're doing your own research, that you're double checking these things before you jump headfirst into these things. So I've told you the reasons why you should or should not write your own letters of recommendation. Hopefully I've given you some guidance on how to handle that situation if you are faced with it as you begin to build your applications. First things first, very important, unless the school says otherwise, most don't. It is okay if you have to write your own letters of recommendation for someone else to sign and submit, as long as you and the signatory are in agreement. You and your recommender have a plan and both of you know what that plan is. There is no gray area. You know exactly what's happening. They know exactly what's happening. If all of that is in place, chances are the law school doesn't care. They may not know, ever, unless you choose to tell them. Or again, little notation. Those things aren't there and you have not told them, it looks no different. However, there are really, really good reasons to try and avoid having to write your own letters of recommendation. Your recommender is not you. They see you in a different way than you see yourself. They may see valuable skills, traits, characteristics, personality, whatever it is. They may see those things and you do not. Having them write the letter gives them the chance to express those things that you never would because you just don't see it. Number 2. Particularly if they know that you have waived your rights to see the letter after it is finished, they can be more candid, for better or worse. Again, there are reasons that people will be extra positive, more enthusiastic. There are reasons that people will be less than stellar recommenders if they know that you're not going to see it. Both of those things happen. I have seen both of them happen. So, should you write your own letters of recommendation? Like everything else in law school, the answer is it depends. Hopefully this video has been helpful. If it has, like and subscribe. If you can think of a friend that may benefit, please share it with them. Talk soon.